Well, we've got another great project for On the Mark with Mark with the 73 Corvette, and that is the Borgeson steering box is going in here. This is going to be a really good improvement to this car, so let's get right to it. Hit the intro video. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. I have already loosened up and taken the bolts out of the rag joint here. So that is probably the one thing that's easiest to get to from the hood side of things. So I'm going to raise this thing up on the lift and we're going to work underneath. I have already removed the hydraulic ram and the leaking valves, and I left the hoses attached to these parts right here, so the power steering pump has got no hoses going to it right now. So we're just going to start on the steering box. This is all just nasty under here because that power steering fluid has been leaking under here for as long as I've owned this car. But I thought you might like to see how I'm working here. I've got this short little, it's a sitting creeper, and this is a short lift because I've only got a little over 8 feet of height in this garage. And fortunately, Corvettes are fairly short up and down, so I can put it up to its full height, which I think it might be 42 inches, something like that. So I'm gonna try to clean some of this up a little bit before I get to working in here. So I'm gonna shoot it with some gunk. I'm gonna remove this bracket that the hydraulic cylinder was mounted on, just to get it out of my way before I get into the steering box. Look at that, these are attached. I wonder how I'm going to get those out of there. Alright, so that bracket's off. Two. Number 3. I think I'm going to need this for the Borgeson conversion, but they talk about a puller for this, and I don't have one here, so I'm going to take this off now and then try pulling it on the bench. So we'll see. I pounded the bolts through the frame there. Now the only thing holding it on is the rag joint up there, which is giving a little trouble. Well, let's try taking it off through the top. Grimy thing. I thought it might be interesting to weigh the two different power steering assemblies here and see which one is lighter. That thing is fairly heavy. Looks like about 22 pounds. We're at 30 pounds. 32 pounds. 33 pounds. And here's the hardware. Looks like 34 pounds. Yeah, we're going to stick with that. Now I'll weigh the factory components here. Looks like 19 pounds. That bracket won't be needed now. Let's see if I can balance this. And I'm throwing this hardware on too because none of the hardware for this stuff is here. So I'm going to say the hardware was roughly equivalent. I'm getting 40 pounds here. Now, neither one of these have got power steering fluid in them. That would add a little bit of weight. And also, I'm not so sure about this pitman arm. This might end up going on there. In fact, I'm pretty sure it does. So we could subtract this and add it to that one, which that's probably a 1 pound. So that's where we're going to be. But boy, if we can get rid of this leaky stuff, and this thing doesn't leak, oh my gosh, I'll be so happy about that. The only car I have that leaks is this thing. Before I put the new steering box in, I noticed that this piece here and this piece here are not painted. So I've decided that I'm going to paint them. I'm not sure what they're made out of. They might be aluminum. They kind of look like some kind of pot metal. But either way, I'm painting them. Okay, she's all taped off pretty good. Done. Now we've got to get this thing off. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let's heat it. Yeah, it's going quicker.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was moving. Boy, that sure turned. Come on. A little heat. After hitting this area with the wire brush and this area with the wire brush, I'm going to hit it with some black paint. Paint stayed kind of crinkled, but I'm gonna just live with it. So this is ready to go. difference in the sheen on the paint there. This stuff was a semi-gloss, and I don't know if the steering box from Borgeson has got a flat black on it or if that's satin. But anyway, that's the way it's going to stay. Here's what I'm seeing with these two rag joints. This is the factory one that I just took off of the car, and this is the one that is supplied by Borgeson. And they're interesting in that the factory one has the spline on the inside, and so does the Borgeson one. But the factory one has this bolt that actually interferes with the shaft in there. There's a flat spot on the shaft that goes on. This one has a set screw that will go on that shaft. And then it's a weldment here. And the two pretty close to the same shape all the way around here. Got the same deals going there. This side is different. This one has a spline shaft that it went onto on the old steering box, and this one is smooth, and the shaft that it mounts on actually does have two flat spots on it. So these two set screws are going to hold it onto the shaft. Now I'm considering using this half of the factory one because I kind of like how this is better than this. Instead of this set screw and this welded here, this is a casting. So I don't know, that's the differences in what they supplied between the factory and Borgeson. So we'll see what I come up with. There's the two steering boxes side by sides. You can see the overall general girth of the new Borgeson steering box compared to the factory one that came with the Corvette. This shaft is quite a bit longer than this one here, but it's also longer in this direction too, right here. So this is the hydraulic motor section of this power steering unit. Right there, you can see where I repainted it. Got the grease off the pitman arm as best I can. Now it's going in the sandblaster. Ta-da! Beautiful. This is one of my favorite parts about the old car hobby, is taking individual parts. Now I'm gonna take it on the grinder and I'm gonna deburr it a little better than what the factory did, and we'll get it painted up and detailed. It'll look really nice. Got this painted and the top of this painted, and here's my pitman arm. Paint turned out nice on that too. That'll go on down here after I get it in the car. We're ready to put this in. I could not get the Borgeson splined tube to go on the end of my steering column. No matter what I did, it just wouldn't go on. So I'm back to the factory one, and that one just slides on beautifully. I don't understand why this one won't fit, but it doesn't. And in order to make it so that it'll work with the other half of the Borgeson rag joint, I had to drill out these two holes right here so that they're the same size as those holes there. So slight modification there. I'm afraid there may be some other alignment issues, but I think I can make up for that in other places. I'm doing this in 90-degree heat. Before putting the stiffener bracket on, you've got to remove the two bolts off of the top of the gearbox here and then get them started on this bracket, the stiffener bracket here. So kind of hard to do with one hand, but there we go. Then Borgeson supplied 2 new bolts. Actually, this was probably a Ride Tech thing since this is the Ride Tech bracket. Anyway, I'm just getting them started here so that the thing stays in place. And it's got slotted holes on it, so we'll have some movement in it. Now I gotta get the 3 bolts on the side started. I saw where another guy did this. Instead of using the Borgeson or Ride Tech hardware, I'm gonna use the factory hardware because it's a carriage bolt, and I did have some tire rub in here, and I don't have any tires that actually are the factory size for this, and I've got another set of tires in mind that I want to put on this thing, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be the opportunity for some rubbing, so I sure as heck don't want to rip up some brand new tires on some really hard hex heads instead of these nice smooth carriage bolts. So I'm using the carriage bolts that the factory used. I got the bracket on and the rag joint all tightened down, and these 2 set screws here also have been tightened down. Now I just need to tighten this bolt back here on my original flange that was on the end of the steering column. That bracket is tight, and then I have hoses to do. 1 end of 1 down, 3 more ends to go. This is a pretty neat adapter fitting that Borgeson supplies with their steering box. What this is it converts that hole right there that is made for an O-ring fitting, which is what this end is, and it converts it to a flare type fitting, which is what that does. So all you need to do is drop it down in there and give it a little tap tap, and she's good. I'm going to use this center punch to be sure to not miss. There it is, yep. Fits right in there on, well, that's kind of a loose fit. That's the way. And there's the hoses hooked up. So I got the rag joint tightened up. The box itself is bolted down good with the extra bracket on it, and the hoses are going down there to the power steering pump. So this one is done too, so that's pretty sweet. Unfortunately, without any front suspension on the car, I can't really do too much testing on that power steering. So that will be the next thing. We're going to be getting this front suspension back on, so that's going to be great. Even though it was 90 degrees out here most of the night while I was working, it's down to what feels very cool, 80 degrees right now. So I'm pretty well drenched in sweat out here. But you know, this is the sort of thing that a guy likes when he's working on his car on a summer night, and it's nice and cool, and things are just going well, and you just keep going. It's a slice of Americana. Working on a Chevy on a summer night with the crickets chirping, it's very satisfying here tonight. So thanks for watching my video on my Corvette here. I'm going to keep on with this Corvette, so like I was just saying, I'm going to do the front suspension next, and we're going to be setting this thing on the ground pretty soon, so that's going to be really cool. So be sure to subscribe, and then you can keep up with me on how things are going here. I did start the car after I put the steering column in, so it hadn't ran for, 16 months maybe. Kind of nice to see that it would still start. That's about it. Hit that like button if you liked this video, and please subscribe, and then you can keep up on what's going on with my Corvette. Thanks for watching. Bye.